All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode with Next in Line. Today's guest, I got, a pretty interesting individual that I've been looking forward to hosting here for a while. He's actually, I'm going to come out and say it right away. He's last year, 2025 National CISO of the Year award winner, recipient from the Orbie Awards from Inspire Leadership Network. It's a legit certification. I'm part of that organization, so I know the rigor and it takes to actually submit the information and kind of and the company that you're in to get that kind of award. That's got to be humbling and it's such a great opportunity for you. So, Robert, thank you for being on the show. And if you don't mind, can you introduce yourself to our subscribers and let them know who you are, what you currently do, and how you got there? And then we can fill in the gaps from there. We can have a lot of fun.
All right, I'm Bob Sullivan, or Robert Sullivan, depending on in writing, Robert Sullivan, because the nuns didn't like me to shortcut my name because my handwriting was so atrocious. So,
That's right.
but I do go by Bob, and I'm the CIO and CISO for a company called Agero. Very quickly, Agero is not very well known, but you've probably interacted with us. We do the roadside assistance for the major insurance companies and the major auto manufacturers. So we're the largest roadside B2B2C player that's out there. It's been around for 50 plus years, one of the largest privately held companies in Massachusetts. So great place to work, great team of folks. And as you mentioned, the award, the CISO award, really a reflection of what a great team I have here at Agero and all the kind of support that I've gotten from the Agero as an organization.
That's great.
As far as like, how did I get here? I've
Sure.
had this very weird path.
Okay.
It's not, I'm not one of those folks who went to school and got a degree in the area that I was going in and then, interned in that area and then did level one job and level two job and level three job. I think I'm at 5 different careers at this point. Started out getting a degree in business management and accounting.
Okay.
And then I went into banking, which does make sense, but on the contact center side of banking,
Mm,
and became an operations supervisor and operations management. And then I kind of slid my way into technology via new technologies becoming available in the finance space back in the day
that's right.
on an everyday basis. So I became an IVR analyst and then became a telecom manager and I ended up going into outsourcing. And then I just took a big turn in my career and left there and became the second North American employee for a British software company that was a startup company and ended up being in charge of sales and services for that. So kind of got some experience on the other side of the table, as we say,
Sure.
and did that for almost 10 years until Agero gave me a call and been at Agero since then, just loving my time here and, hopefully helping them out.
I think you're doing that for sure, my friend. That's pretty cool, man. So, like, I noticed I've talked to a lot of leaders on Next in Line here, and I'll tell you, it's not a shock. Like, typically people that kind of IT finds them. Maybe now this next generation, there's a lot of kids kind of going to school, go those formal routes and things like that. But they find out, you kind of wind up in this organization. IT is like, whoever was like, let's say a little bit more, had a little more acumen was like kind of the IT guy. I remember the kind of IT guy grew into like, different roles and it just evolved from there. So it's tremendous to see where it's evolved. I've been in the game for 30 years and I remember when, the CIO, maybe the title didn't exist or it was just like head of IT was everything, like security, apps, infrastructure, you name it, the help desk, everything. So it's good to see where it's gone. Want to talk to you a little bit, double click a little bit on your security back, right? And you do both. I forgot that. I mentioned that. So you wear 2 hats, 2 different jobs at Agero. Is that kind of be long term? Is that something that as they evolve, are they going to be like a separation of duty or anything like that for
Yeah,
that role?
there could be. It's sometimes it could potentially be a conflict where you wear the CISO information security role hat, and you want to make sure that you're not in a situation in which somebody would not expose something
Yeah.
because something's going on the infrastructure side, and that's embarrassing. And and so you could get this potential conflict, but you actually see more CIO CISOs more and more happening. And
Combined roles?
yeah, the combined roles. And I think what it's coming down to is that it's understood that that's a risk and that you got to kind of stay on top of that. And I've always had this understanding if there's any kind of pressures around it that I would just go into the CISO role and, kind of give up the CIO stuff. Might be a little bit more bored, but it was but whatever's best for the organization. But I think that you see more of these combined roles coming together now because you get more leverage to get what you need to get done and you have more access to resources. So I can shift focus, in the organization and funding in the organization to mature either the cyber side or the infrastructure side. And I can really understand the balance between like what is the impact of these security controls on the people who are administering them on a daily basis. So it seems to be more often that companies of certain sizes, mid-size, are choosing to go this route. And it seems to be more effective. It's definitely more fun.
I could definitely see the benefits there too, so you don't, from prioritization standpoint, they're both your priorities. So like you can, you know, from a budgeting perspective, resource allocation, you name it, you're in total control of it. You guys, in being an organization like the size of you guys are you guys also, have regulatory controls, any type of regulatory compliance you have to adhere to?
Yeah, we have regulatory requirements, and then we're working with the top 50 companies in the world sometimes. So you get all these large insurance companies that are Fortune at least 100 companies that are out there, and we're the custodians of their data, their
Mm.
consumer data, and so we take that very very seriously, and they do as well. So there's a lot of diligence that goes on back and forth between the organizations and making sure that we've got the right plan in place for them.
I like that. No, I mean that's heightened, right? Because I'm sure there's SLAs associated with that. I'm sure there's a number of, agreements and contract language to make sure that you guys are, taking care and protecting that data.
Yeah, we do. We did. I think last year we closed out at 141 audits.
So it's like you're auditing all year round, basically. Let me ask you a question. Today, like, what sets apart, let's say, cyber leaders who at the executive layer versus, let's say, the tactical layer? What do you think, in your opinion? What kind of sets the two apart?
I think there's a mindset difference that you can see when you talk to folks. If some of the most effective, CISOs that are the cyber leaders that are out there take the approach of, hey, I'm a business leader and I
Mm,
own this cyber portion, of the world, which, that type of mindset, you could take the mindset of, I am a cyber professional and, in the organization and that's my expertise and that's what I do. I think there's value in that for sure. We all need to have cyber experts, to be
absolutely.
able to translate risk and what's going on. But I think the bigger opportunity that you see with the more high performing CISOs is that they really start looking at things from the business person's perspective and then they start looking for opportunities and risk reduction from that cyber perspective. So you'll see different fascinating group of people. I know one CISO who actually is in charge of the AI strategy for the entire company, and
Mm,
it's a media brand slash manufacturing big company, and they own that space, and so they're obviously the experts around privacy and the cyber elements of it, but they were seen as the right type of leader to lead that effort and hopefully that's what you see kind of here at Agero, where our groups are kind of leading the technology thing versus taking the approach of, hey, we have to be so conservative on controls that we're limiting access to stuff.
yeah. Slow the business down almost, right? Like too much
Yeah.
controls. So it's all, like you said, I think something I took from that is like it's more the mindset and
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah. One of the interesting things is that you could sit in the cyberspace and just look at it and say, I'll give you a specific example. There was a recent article that was out that somebody built an agent and pointed it towards an open source library that's been around for a million years. And we thought we knew all the vulnerabilities that were on it. And within a day, it identified 500 new 0-day vulnerabilities on it. And so, you know, when you first hear that, you might want to crawl up into a little hole.
Imagine. I mean, no, we already know all the vulnerabilities, brother,
Yeah.
right? Right, we're good.
But really, that shows the power of the technology to protect the organization. right? And the fact that now from a Gen AI perspective, we have these agents that can go in, something that researchers, 500 things that researchers never found, right,
Damn.
were found within a day, using these new models that have been coming out the last couple months. So, a lot of power, within that world and exciting type stuff. And if you can take that mindset, you can do a lot of creative stuff. We have one of my teams, cyber engineering team. We're looking for ways to do threat analysis at the beginning of the coding process. We're largely a digital platform. We marry up people on the side of the road digitally with tow truck providers. So most of our focus is kind of in that engineering and platform space. And so when we begin developing things, we want to have like a security view on it and use the right models as a stride models. Use a stride model and do that. But it's traditionally pretty labor intensive. So the guys actually they took our product templates for our slides. They're just slides, like Google Slides. But they're all formatted kind of in the same way to describe what work is being done within the product space. And they developed an agent that ingests that and then spits out a full threat analysis.
Damn.
It saves probably hours of effort just to do that. So, that's the benefit of kind of like, okay, understand the risk, be appropriately protect the organization, but look at it from business opportunity and process opportunity on how do you use this technology, because it's available to you just like it's available to them.
It's super powerful. I mean, it can really, in the right hands, could do a lot of good. I mean, the opposite too. Like, I have a question here for you too. Like, I'll skip around a little bit. Like, I feel like there's evolving threats, right? I mean, bad actors you just basically give them new toys to get even better at what they do. How do we combat that? What kind of advice do you give the boardroom? Like, how do we combat something like that if we're at risk and we got to protect our clients' data? If we don't, we're at risk of losing that client, and that can spiral to a number of unfortunate things, right?
Yeah.
Even liabilities, lawsuits, you name it. I mean, how do you combat this with what proactive measures do you take?
We started with visibility, and we invested a lot of time and tooling and everything into just getting the maximum amount of visibility that we could. Because you got this world where like we're 97% in the cloud. And so, it's just there's thousands and thousands of instances and containers and all this different technology. And it's not like the old world. Like there's all kinds of cloud configurations that nobody ever thought of that can get switched on, and then, they'll change your risk profile and create vulnerabilities and things like that. So to ground the program, we went out and invested in maximizing our visibility. So there's tools like cloud native app and protection platform stuff that's out there, and different next generation CMDB, which is collecting all your different assets and what's going on. You've got, code tools to look at dependency, vulnerabilities and custom. All that stuff has to come together. And then you've got the problem that you're seeing an enormous amount, right? And it's like, how do I organize this and attack this stuff? Because it's not all the same. Like if I have a vulnerability in code, but that
Hmm.
code only exists in a repository and it's not deployed out into the production world, then I don't like it. But it's a
Hmm.
different risk than
Yeah.
if it's exposed out to the outside world. So we've invested a lot in risk-based vulnerability management, which is taking tooling, taking all these individual vulnerabilities and putting them in context to the organization. So we can see that if that code suddenly appears and it goes into a container and that container is connected to the internet, we get an immediate alert that
Okay.
goes in and says this high vulnerability is now a critical vulnerability because of where it lives within our organization. So we've been, a lot of people have been struggling with that, but we've been partnering. We actually partnered with the largest CNAPP provider out
Mm.
there to build the connections between GitHub Advanced Security and their platform to create those associations. And we successfully are in that space. So we say, okay, that's good. It's good for like today.
That's what I was going to say today, right?
What we're evolving towards is a thing that they call CTEM, which is
CISO.
continuous threat vulnerability management, exposure management. Sorry, that's E is exposure. What that allows you to do is to get into real time. Because when you think about it, that agent that I was talking about that found the 500 vulnerabilities, threat actors are probably going to develop agents that just target your company. So it used to be that they would inventory that you of vulnerabilities, and then they would come back later and kind of, attack those vulnerabilities as the lowest hanging fruit, type thing is the problem that you would have. Now in a world, they could pick and say, oh, Agero is a good target, right?
Mhm.
We like them. They have money or something, right? Something that they want. And they could say, we don't see any vulnerabilities that are out there, but we'll just build an agent and we'll just watch. And so then the time frame between becomes very critical between when a vulnerability exists and when it's resolved. So you always want to block all vulnerabilities, going into, before they make it out into production. But you could be using like third-party libraries that have been out there for months and months, and somebody discovers a vulnerability. So there's going to be this race, right, between the time of vulnerability discovering until when you close that gap. And if you've got somebody out there who's using an agent to just monitor it, they're going to try to sneak in that gap time frame.
Damn.
So, we're starting to re-instrument to go faster, to be more reactive so that we close that window, as well as improving our visibility and don't put it out there. A lot of times people will think, oh, well, as long as within your software release cycle, if you've taken care of all your vulnerabilities, then you're okay. And it's like, well, unfortunately, new vulnerabilities pop up all the time, even with stuff that you haven't touched in years, possibly.
So it's like a never ending. It's just, you got a continuous, I'll do it. It's kind of had me thinking there. You said like, they'll just might set up an agent just to watch. It's like somebody's like watching the house real quick. See, when you leave the house, oh, they're on vacation. Now let's go. Right.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
It's kind of scary. It's very scary. I did hear a comment. One of my friends, he's a chief information security officer too. And he mentioned that he sees a change where he tries to explain to, let's say, the business that security is not a cost center anymore. It's more like an enabler, a business enabler. He tries to explain it. That kind of hit me pretty good. Like, I mean, I look at this now, especially with regulatory stuff, what you're accountable for. I mean, if companies today won't do business with you unless you have the right security in place or structure in place, or how can you prove that to like an external new client and things like that? I mean, how much does that how much does that weigh into your career in consideration too? Like, if your thing is not right, you might not be able to get that new client, that new insurance company, or that something like that. Is that right?
Yeah. The interesting thing about it is how companies assess the security of the third party. And I
Okay.
think that in general, it's not adequate. So, and I kind of think about it from the position of, okay, we have this very secure, advanced cyber program. We have competitors that are out there that are pretty sure that that's not the case. Size and scale and just different, factors, funding factors, and all that other stuff go into that assessment.
Sure.
But they check the box and we check the box. And how does that happen? That the client company, the really big client company does it. Well, the questions that they ask are dated, and it's dragged you kind of back into this old premise-based world. And the responses that they get back can be limited, right?
Mm.
Just because the nature of how the question's asked. Do you do this is different than do you do this all the time everywhere,
Well, how
right?
about show me? Show
Yeah.
me you do this.
Yeah. And then we are seeing more clients coming and asking for evidence review, within the environment and spending more time kind of walking through things. But the other thing too is that there's a reliance on ISO and SOC, TSACs, and, these different, frameworks out there. And you say, okay, if you got that, then you're good. And I would suggest that it's better than not having them for sure. They do demonstrate that you have these core standard set of controls. What it doesn't really demonstrate is that your security program is highly tailored to your own risk, that it is about your risk. So when I look at it and say, okay, well, I got to be, the custodian of my client's data, then I just don't want to like have a generic like thing. I want to do that. That's just the base level. And then I want to go in and say, okay, I got this unique security asset that's out here, consumer data. How am I, crafting very specific controls and strategies and monitoring around those things to most appropriately protect the client's data? I don't think any of that stuff comes out in, you know, going into the portal and filling out 100 questions, in what they call a GRC environment and doing that stuff. And I don't know, like I don't have like a fix for the clients.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hey, number
It's
one, I'm not interested in flipping around and developing those questions. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me in my life, but I do think, it's interesting. So yes, for sure. You got to be able to, do that. But, is it currently a differentiator in most markets? Not yet. Maybe that happens in the next couple of years.
wow, that's a great point, man. I mean, let me ask you something about like because more than ever you hear about security now with AI, just more and more and more and more and more. It's being talked about just every day. How do you develop, let's say, that security culture in an organization? Even into the business. Because that's, I get the IT folks get it, right? They're naturally by nature, right? That's what they do. They're very protective and they want to make sure that their stuff's locked down. But the business doesn't see what happens, right? Only until something happens. That's what I noticed.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that IT people get it because a lot of people don't believe that.
Wow.
And so a lot of people who work deep in cyber
Hmm.
don't believe that their peers in engineering get it. And yeah, I did a presentation just kind of based on our experience for a major infrastructure conference, and it was about conflict to collaboration. And one of the key principles of it, when you said that, just looks like, is that you have to start there because they do.
Yeah.
Now, they may be ignorant of the best way to, take that intent and bring it to the finish line. They may have a lot of other pressures that you have to work with them on and like, and they're not getting the big bonus doing the cyber stuff. All those things you have to work through. But if you start from the position that they don't get it, then you're really never going to get anywhere with cybermetrics. The whole beginning of the whole discussion is that, hey, you're just staring at cybermetrics and everybody agrees that they're going to hit something. And you go back, 3 months later and nobody's hit it. And then you go back 3 months later and nobody's hit it. But everybody's wagging their head at, yeah, 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 yeah. It's because you're missing all these dynamics to truly partner with them. So I know I took a sideways turn on that one, but,
Oh, it's good. It was very good.
insightful piece of, you hit on some insightful, important thing for people to understand. But then yeah, educating everybody. We do the phishing, type, activities. I think that one of the most interesting ways is that we do stuff for October, I think is Cyber Awareness Month. And
Okay.
and we'll do stuff, for that, specific stuff. Team does a great job. We have a great internal business communications team. They're all fantastic. But I think it's more valuable when something hits the media and
Mm.
says, it's the colonial pipeline. It is the casino issue. It isn't what I do immediately upon one of those is get a communication out to the entire company
Okay.
talking about this is how, this is what happened in this case. This is what to be thinking about. Here's what we're doing to defend ourselves against those things.
Good.
But you're not going to get that type of mind share until that level of incident happens. So go and grab it because it'll start building up the security culture amongst everybody. Because like you say, everybody's kind of like, they get it, they're into it, but they
Yeah.
but they kind of struggle sometimes relating it to their everyday job.
Oh, for sure. Like I like that you said it's not just waiting for it to happen to you, but like like other incidents outside your industry, whatever, because those things can happen, right? And I like the way you articulate that. Like this is what we're doing to prevent something like that, right? So it's kind of education. So how do you another one, kind of like a double click on the same question a little bit is how do you build that culture when the company's moving fast, fast, fast? Like that hustle culture. I want to move. I want to grow. I want to grow. Does that you have to pull them back? How do you navigate that amongst like, executives in general? I think they want to go fast.
Yeah, one of the things that we find highly successful because you see most of that pressure is in that product to engineering pipeline
Okay.
That's where we commonly see it for everybody's the product to engineering pipeline. And so what we've done is that we've agreed as a leadership team that 20% of the time is going to be managed by each squad. And that's going to be focused on these types of things, cyber, reinvesting in pipeline services, things like that. And
That's
we
good.
give them that time to work on those things. Now, do I think, I'll go around and ask architects every once in a while, actually that 20% really gets retained, right? Because there's
Hey,
pressures and like, how's it?
yeah,
Yeah, and the general answer is that most of it does. Like, about
good.
50% of it is.
As I said, it sounds good on paper, but like in reality, does it happen?
Yeah, and then it's released the engineering leadership to give quotes on time based on knowing that they have this 20% that they have to deal with as well.
Okay.
So, I can assure you most people in that process don't know enough to challenge all of the 20% time things. So when
Sure.
a product person comes to you and says, hey, how long is it going to take to do that? You can calculate that out with the 20% in. We've all
Mhm.
agreed to that it's going to be there, so they can't challenge it anyway. But even if they were like, can you not do this? They just don't understand the process to the same level as the engineering leader understands the process. So you don't spend a lot of time talking about it. You
No,
just
okay.
go with it. This is the assumption. This is what we're going to do, and then you move forward. And it's so important. We've been around for 50 years, and so we replatformed a number of years ago through an acquisition, and so all of our technology is relatively new, but still, it's just over time, even in the short window of 5 to 7 years, then you get these tech debt things that you just absolutely have to address, or you're going to drown in them later. And if you don't set up some sort of ability for them to address it, then you're not going to succeed.
That you just brought up another one there, tech debt. I mean, in the security side, like how do you get rid of that debt?
The visibility is that first part of it, because if you don't have visibility and then you're coming to folks and saying, hey, what is your MTTR and, on critical items and all that other stuff. If you don't scan the dependency libraries for that, then you're going to think it's one thing and it's really another thing. So really, the visibility baselines everybody to
Mhm.
say, okay, we understand that this is where we're at. But I think the other critical and somewhat controversial take from Bob's perspective is that you then allow them to roadmap removing backlog. So you say, now, if I say to them, I need you to be here by Y time, then they're going to say yes. And then I'm going to go back and have that what we talked about before. 3 months later, where we at? Ugh. And the reason is not because that they didn't really mean it at that time, is that some product manager came in and said, we need to get this done. And so this was set aside, and like all the political dynamics and everything go into effect. If if you set that goal, it's your goal. So you then manage that goal, because you don't want to be in a position later on where we get 2 quarters into the whole thing and I go back and say, hey, why didn't you meet your goal? We didn't ask you to do anything, right? You could have a flat goal, if you want to try to justify that, great, right? But you said you were going to do this. So why didn't that get done? And then you have this constructive conversation. But from my experience, about 80% of the time it gets done. And if you
Put the
get the
accountability on them.
yeah, if you put engineering in the position, they're the best. If you put them in the position that they own stuff, they overachieve because they automate it. They're like, Bob, you want to get rid of these things and blah, blah, blah. We're going to put 3 blocks into the SDLC thing. We'll stop this tomorrow. Right. And then they'll go through and
Like
they'll
they
flip
welcome
up
it.
different ways.
Bring it to
Stuff
me.
I had no visibility into, no idea. But if you can get them to own it, and
Mhm.
they own the success, then, there's a high rate of, success in that. We've had a lot of success in that. We have some areas in which we turn around and we go, hey, listen, we're 6 months into this and we're not where we thought we were going to be. And then
Yeah,
we have a broader discussion with leadership to say, how do we get there? But, 80% plus percent of the time we're actually looking back and going, you guys did better than you thought you'd be able to do in that space.
that's huge. I like that because you put accountability in on them. They own it. They have to get it done. Usually you said about 80, you're batting 800. I mean, that's pretty good average. Right?
Yeah. 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 It's it's uncomfortable for cyber folks because you go and you put all these awesome tools in, you see all this stuff, and it's all risk in your mind, right? And it just
Oh yeah.
makes you uncomfortable. So one of the coaching things on the side of the cyber engineering team is to sit down with them and say, okay, we're not less more vulnerable than we were yesterday. We just know. And this isn't going to disappear tomorrow. So, we need to work with everyone to go through because you have this other cultural dynamic within the cyber engineering group that they can just be nervous because they see all this. They feel responsible for all this risk,
For
right?
sure.
And that can lead to non-productive behavior. So at the same time as you're kind of empowering the engineering organizations to create their own path and justify their own path, then you're also on the other side of it, helping your cyber engineering folks to kind of be like, okay. And by the way, we're gonna let engineering focus on that because there's going to be a topic du jour tomorrow about something else in the security world, but they're going to be working on that. And we can talk about it and come up to a plan for when they're done working on that, but they're going to be working on that. So it's a lot of,
Wow. Yeah,
a lot.
I got a quick question for you. Like, and I guess outside the organization, it's off the cuff a little bit, but with security being like, front and center more than ever, right? Like the size organization, how do you size up? How do you staff up for this, man? Like, is there like any ratios, any certain amount of nodes, or is it, users that you have to have a certain amount of resources?
Yeah, it's so dependent. I wish there was like an
Like a little chart or something, right, for us?
yeah. So when, I work with a charity, you look at their world and they've got a limited number of staff and they've got, not a lot of it's SaaS services. So, that size organization or any size organization can look drastically different, right? So it's like that organization, they use all SaaS tools. The same size organization could be a small software company, and they're going to have to do a lot more and
Because
have a
it's
lot more
everything
focus.
they own, though,
Because,
right?
yeah, because if you put together a software company and there's 15 people, you probably should have one. And this is just a gut feeling, right? You should have one dedicated, somebody who's truly dedicated, not, you know,
Oh
uh,
yeah,
aside from,
architecting security inside,
yeah.
from the code base, right?
Yeah, but if you have 10 or 15 people and you're working in an organization and all the tools are SaaS tools and it's a legal department, legal company or something like that, then you don't have the same dynamic. So it gets back to that your risk program needs to be tied to your business and your specific needs and that kind of drives that whole how many people do we actually need?
It's good.
One of the classic ones is that as it gets bigger, as you get bigger is should you have your own internal SOC
Mm,
or should you, outsource that? And that it's very different answer, depending on like where you are and what your specific needs are. There's a lot of the world out there. It's like, well, I could build my own SOC services and staff it 7 by 24 and we'll have 14 people because we got to cover for vacations and all that other stuff. Like we're like Agero, we're experts. It's like setting up 7 by 24 support. So we kind of know that whole world, but we don't run our own SOC. And the reason we don't run our own SOC is that we look at it and say, those 14 people can't house all of the security disciplines as experts. So we need to bring in a partner who's an MDR partner who knows the tools better, who knows this and has thousands and thousands of people and hundreds working within each one of these domains to kind of better protect us.
same here. I sort of sock too, man. At your level, but or a small level. It just wow, I'll take it all day long. I don't have to worry about it. It's monitored. It's you bind into a service that has all that depth. I mean, it's to me, it's a no brainer, right?
Yeah, yeah. But if you were the same type of organization and made vacuums,
Yeah,
right? And you had a bunch of IoT devices out there and everything. Well, those out of the box SOC services aren't going to help you out that much. I mean, I'm saying that's a general.
yeah.
Somebody's going to watch this and call me up and go, Bob, we have the perfect thing for the IoT.
Guaranteed, guaranteed. You already threw it out there. I love it. I love it. So let me ask you. So let me switch back to like more on the leadership side, or like kind of like the journey to how you got here, right? I wanted to kind of zero dig a little bit. So when did you first get into the C-suite?
5 years ago, 6 years. My role has kind of evolved over time. When I joined Agero, I had the data networking and telecom teams. It was a flashback to like when I was, working in the BPO space, large contact center space. And then
Sure.
I just kind of like grew in the organization and kind of took on as we moved into the cloud, taking on cloud. And cybersecurity is the last thing I wanted. As a matter of fact, I got into a whole thing with my old boss. There was an issue that needed to be resolved. There were two different cyber teams, and it was a board level thing that had to be worked out, and just it just wasn't working. And so I kind of came in
Yeah.
specifically to tactically address this and talk to the board, like do the whole thing. I told my boss, I said, "This is it. Which is one. I'm a one trick pony. Coming in here, I'm doing this, and there's just back when I just want to go back and do my other stuff because there's plenty of exciting things going on in cloud and digital, digital enablement and all that other stuff."
Keep you busy.
And then I think it was about like a year later, maybe 6 months later, and he sticks his head into the office and says, "Yeah, we're combining those organizations, and you lead that now."
That's it. That was
So
it.
that was the
That was like a promotion or what? Like, was that like, by the way, you're promoted, by the way?
yeah. Oh no, you kind of earn your way into jobs around here, right? So you
Love
do
that.
more, but
Love that.
eventually
Love that.
it gets recognized and stuff. So it's a good culture that way. Try it out. So yeah, so I did that and took it
Manage
on.
from your chair. That's how they used to do it. Like manage from your chair. Like, do the job before you get that job, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then that's kind of been the path, which I think is good too, because it gives both sides an opportunity to look at it and say, "Hey, what do you want to do?" But the more I dug into the cyber stuff, and I ended up going out and getting my CISSP and my CISM. One of the things that I don't want to micromanage people at all, but what I don't want to be is so ignorant that I can't participate in it.
It's kind of
And
like a little
so
bit of balance, right? It's like a,
yeah. So like when I took over cloud, like, I became like an AWS architect, and that's, type thing is just like always constantly just trying to get a base level understanding so that I can be of some help to these people. Now, obviously, organizationally, I can do a bunch of stuff, coaching and all this other stuff, but I do like to have like the fundamentals. And
you still like getting close. You still want to have the technical chops. Sounds like.
yeah, but I don't want to get into like I'm not doing anything useful. I
Right.
assure you that like, they did try to limit my login access to anything. You know, I'm
But you
not
want to be,
going
I
to
hear you want to be part of the discussions. You want to
not
understand what
doing
these
it.
guys are
But I
talking
want to
about.
be able to sit there and talk to folks about, well, this is how we could potentially, achieve this. This is, how we could potentially architect these things. The more I got into cyber, the more fun it was. Cyber is interesting in that it encompasses all of technology. I looked at
Hmm.
one time there was what I think there are 66 what I consider technology domains. And so within my organization, we handle 44, right? And then we closely interact with the other 20. And so for me, it's just fun because you're always into this new next thing. It's always interesting. You're touching on all these things. The cyber organization, unless you're very, very, very large, is always going to be these generalists that understand all these different, elements that can kind of influence the detailed operations as you go through. And it's super fun because you get to play in everybody's backyard
You
in
know,
all the technologies, all the initiatives that are going on and stuff. Sometimes they're looking at you like, I don't know that I want this guy, but you
this guy's
usually will.
always in our back. Is in everybody's damn backyard, right? But do you guys separated? Like you have like your compliance, let's say audit guys or your compliance analysts versus your engineers, security engineers.
Yeah, so the way that we broke it up is that we have a GRC component, so that's
Okay.
really what is externally facing. So they're working on the ISO audits, PCI, TSACs, and all the customer inquiries and stuff. Do fantastic job. Incredible leader in that space,
That's great.
and they focus on that. They're very closely tied to how we operate internally because to do that job, you need to have that knowledge. And then we have
100%.
cyber engineering. In cyber engineering, I made sure that they had audit autonomy. So, when we first looked at it, it was like, oh, well, these guys do the WAF rules plus cyber engineering. And I'm like, no, no, no. Because you don't own tools, right? We're an audit organization. There are other parts of my organization that are hands-on doing things like, with the cloud service brokers, the VPN, the firewall configuration. That's all done in my operational side. And the cyber engineering group, they're handling tools that are just cyber focused things like phishing, campaign education, stuff like that.
Yeah.
CSPM and CNAP and all those tools, all that monitoring stuff they administer, but they do not functionally touch firewalls and do
Yeah.
rules.
And figuring firewalls and deploying, none of that. Okay. I like that. I like that. So let me ask you, what would you say is one trend out there that leaders outside of, let's say, InfoSec, like CEOs or sales leaders, right, underestimate in cyber, about cyber?
Yeah, I think that they underestimate the level of confidence that they can, instill in their clients
Ooh,
based
I
on
like that. Now you're
the
talking.
by the
You must
cyber.
have done sales before.
Huh? Yeah, I must have done
You spent
sales.
some time in business development, didn't you? Right. You had to. You had to, Bob.
I did what is unique about, Agero write up the security program just to get at kind of that. And because I've spent so much time like ingrained in the whole thing, it was not like, it's not the best piece of sales stuff ever, but it was, kind of correct as far as like what we think are unique about the program and everything. But you know who did a better job at summarizing the whole thing into an 8-minute video? Gen AI.
I love it.
Like
I like it.
95% correct. I need to tweak a couple of things.
What's your go-to? What's your go-to? What do you like using best?
Oh, we
What
use
platform?
Gemini, but we also, you know, for our corporate support, we use Gemini. For our engineering architectural, we give them access to everything as long as they're private models. And that's one of the things that we had to sit down and really think hard about this because as we're talking about being guardians of our clients' data. So we have, principles in which that, you can use a Gen AI model, but it's got to be a private model to us. It can't be training
Yeah.
data outside. We have to understand all the data that's going in and kind of come out. So we spent a lot of time kind of thinking about that. But at the same time, this is where you get into are you the business leader or are you the cyber guy, right? The goal from the very beginning for architecture and engineering races, give them access to everything that they think could possibly be valuable, and then figure out how you secure that. Not figure out a bunch of security controls, right? And then impose that
Right.
on the organization. So we have a bunch of stuff with Claude model, Anthropic Cloud, and Let Code, and OpenAI, and all these different environments, and they can go in and they can play in those environments. We give them different training than we give, like your corporate user who uses Gemini to build gems.
Yeah. I'll tell you though, Google has a sweet little value proposition right now, the stack. They're gonna be really, I mean, they're valuable. They're gonna be, to me, they're skipping chapters, man. They're doing pretty well with
Yeah, it's we always sit there and like we like to see this leapfrog action happen. And it's like, they're all, in this last leap, they all took the leap at the same time, which is a little bit different than what we've seen over the last couple of years. But what
right.
we've seen over the last couple of years is that Google, Gemini will be here, and
Yeah.
then OpenAI will go there, and then it'll loop, and
Was
it'll
it
loop.
like every other month or was it like every quarter, right? It's like one up each other. But now you're right. Kind of they all jumped at the same time. That's a really good perspective. That's really smart. Yeah, it's really good. I like that. So let me ask you, so advice that you would give, right? A rising CISO. Let's think Bob 5 years ago, right?
Yeah,
What would you tell Bob 5 years ago what you know now?
I mean, the hair's not coming back. It's not.
You're too much, man.
It's not even an option. Not even an option.
Bob cracked me
It
up,
was
man.
gone 5 years ago. It's not, it's not coming back. What I would say is, lean, and this is something I think I learned before then, but, not long before then. I had a great mentor who he had one-on-ones with everybody. And I was like, oh, I was so busy, you know, and yet there's like one-on-ones and one-on-ones and one-on-ones. Now, some of the one-on-ones is because, he would come back and it would be just more work for me, right? I talk to so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. But what I learned from them is that that's the way you can truly understand how to deliver value to the organization is make all of those connections. Talk to everybody. Be everybody's enablement buddy. How can I help you? Your discussions should start with the business. How can I help you? I've been thinking about these things, but what are you thinking about? How do we get into it? What problems are you facing, now? And those discussions and maintaining those discussions anchor you into the actual business and what the business needs, what's, happening within the business. It develops partnerships that you're going to get. They're going to do stuff for you later because you've done stuff for them now. And like, you just go in and so it's way more important. And it isn't like necessarily a hierarchical thing. It's like, I want to talk to everybody who reports to the CEO. So it goes down to architects and to make sure there's a sampling for all kinds of different people coming from all kinds of different perspectives in the organization, and keep talking to them because they're going to,
I'll tell you, that advice is phenomenal. And I wouldn't even say that's for just CISOs. I think that's in general.
Yeah, I think it's just an executive skill, and then I think that what happens with CISOs is that you have to be careful of is that when you're going into that room, they may think that all you're there to do is to talk about stuff that
To scare the shit out of everybody, maybe? That's
well,
about
be
it?
like, you need to get this under control, and they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
da, 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 da. So it's harder for a CISO, to go and you have those discussions because people are going to be in a mode where like, oh, this person's going to expect me, suspect something from me. But in the age of AI, you can be going in there and going, hey, how do I get these AI tools to you quickly? How do I unchain processes for you so that it's both secure, because we both want that, right? As well as getting to you quick so that you can react to the business. So but you got to get in that room, and they may be staring at you like, what are they gonna ask me to do? Blah, blah, blah. And then
I think you're gonna hit them something different.
connection and have those discussions and stuff. Also helps to know about their kids and, and all this other stuff. Have a rapport, back and forth.
You're gonna be like, "Well, is he here to remind me that I gotta do that security training again from an
Exactly.
what's my job?"
Security training. If you're a C-level and you're talking about the 5 dudes that, didn't do the cyber training with, an executive, then I would say wrong discussion.
Yeah.
Wrong place.
Wrong place. But something that you just hit, man, it hit me pretty good right now, man. I love that you said that. I was like, become the enabling buddy. I like that, man, because it kind of reminded me of my friend said. He said, like, security is like be viewed as a business enabler. Like, be that enabler. Like you said, how do I get these tools faster? Like to help them, right? Because today you have to have like you can bring tools in, but you got to have the guardrails, right? You got to make sure that they get them, but partner with them, right? I
Yeah,
love that. Man.
little safety wheels on them and let them.
That's why CIO, CISO, you're 2 for 1 right there, brother. I love
Yeah.
it. Man, I can't thank you enough for doing this, man. Look, we chopped it up for a little while. You're a wealth of information. Man, I feel like if I have security problems, I'm calling you, brother. And when you getting back here to the warm weather?
Well, I hope to in the next month or so get back. I'm going to India to visit with our teams out there next week.
Gotcha.
And then I'll be back down in the Florida area in a couple of weeks. So
Where in India?
Bangalore, and which I've never gone to, in Hyderabad. I've been going to India for, it's almost sad to say, but it's over 25 years.
No way.
And I haven't been to those 2 cities, but we have staff in those locations. So I want to make sure that we get out there and we go every single year, and we go and we talk to them about how could we better work with you guys. So instead of going out and being like, oh, we want to take a look at how your operations are going at this time, and and it kind of like audit-ish,
Yeah, that vibe, right? Bring
whatever.
that a little scared, right? A little
Yeah, and
scared.
everybody's, and there's a cultural sensitivity because of the levels that we're at, and they can be very scary for them. And so, but we don't want that. And so we go out and we sit down and we say, we're not here to do that. We're here for you to tell us how we can better work with you. And each year that we've done it, we've come up with over 100 different improvements. And then each year when we go back, we share with them, hey, we heard this last year from you guys. And so you may have noticed these things have changed.
That's
And
awesome.
so that really helps us. This is why it's so important to get out there face to face with them and, work through these things so that they do understand they're part of the team.
Yeah. Do you guys go out there like a SWAT team, kind of go out there together?
It's actually myself and my senior director of DevOps go
Oh,
out,
okay. So just a
invest
couple of you
in that.
guys and go to town.
Yeah.
That's
And
good, man. I have a small team in Hyderabad, and I haven't been there once, and I
oh,
never been. Actually, I haven't been to Europe. Can you believe that?
really? Amazing.
Uh, just life of baseball tournaments. Now maybe after now,
Hey, you get,
he's a man now, so now I can say, well, maybe we might go to Europe now, right?
yeah, do it. I have many suggestions. You'll have to reach out for me for my European suggestions.
Oh, for sure, for sure. But I'm gonna definitely when you get back in town, because I know you live down in South, in Florida, but on the west side, we definitely got to get together, brother.
All right. I look
We
forward
got to
to
get
it.
together. Thank you for paying it forward today and spending time with us on Next Line, because that's our mission. Our mission is all about that. Our subscriber base, Bob, it's CISO, CIOs, from people that maybe just got the nod to be a, in that executive leader. There's a lot of kids that are just getting jobs with CS degrees. There's 77% and can't find jobs. So hearing these perspectives, learning from learning from the time that you dedicated, people can learn from. So I really appreciate that, man.
All right. Thanks for having me.
You're the man.
Talk to you later.